Before we get into today's video, I wanted to let you guys know about an opportunity to participate in a research project about Lord of the Rings, Rise to War, Rise of Kingdoms, and any other mobile strategy game. StoneTone Future Game Consulting Company is looking for players to fill out a short survey detailing what aspects of these games players like. They're specifically looking for players who live in the United States, but anyone is welcome to fill out the survey. If you're interested in participating, there will be a link to the survey in the description of this video. What if I told you that the order in which you allocate your commander's skill points actually matters? Now, a lot of you guys probably already know that, but there have been a number of new players who are joining the game who have reached out to me, so I figured it was worth making a video and talking about it. I'll tell you exactly how it works and go over a few use cases. Let's get into it. Alright guys, I have Arwen's skill tree pulled up here as she's going to be one of my use cases, but I did want to take a minute to touch on how skills work in this game. Most skills have a specific cooldown, so some people when they first join the game believe that a skill like Cleansing Touch, they believe that it goes off on round 2. This actually means it has a cooldown of 2 rounds, so on rounds 1 and 2, the skill is on cooldown, then it goes off on round 3. Rounds 4 and 5 are the cooldown rounds, goes off on round 6, etc., etc. There are other types of skills in the game, but the purpose of this video is talking about the order in which you allocate skills is going to matter for skills that have cooldowns. So if we use Arwen as an example, you're always going to want to put the first point into Cleansing Touch before you put a point into Elven Blessing, because if you put a point into Elven Blessing first, then it will go off before Cleansing Touch, since these skills always go off on the same round. The reason you want to put a skill point into Cleansing Touch first is because this removes debuff. So if you are afflicted with some type of anti-healing, the Cleansing Touch could actually remove the anti-healing debuff, and then when Elven Blessing goes off after Cleansing Touch, Elven Blessing will heal. So if you had skilled Elven Blessing first and you had been hit with some type of anti-healing ability, the game would say, sorry, you can't heal because right now you are being prevented from healing. Then Cleansing Touch would go off and cure that debuff. If we use Elro here as an example, the skills are slightly different, but the same thing applies. Level-Headed removes a debuff and recovers HP, while Relief just recovers HP. You want that debuff removal to go off first. And this applies to pretty much any commander who has skills that are going to be used in the same round that you want them to go off in a specific order. We can use Éomer as another example. You're going to want Marshal of the Mark, if you take skill points in the skill, to go off before Cleave, because Cleave is modified by your speed stat, and Marshal of the Mark increases your speed stat for 1 round. So Marshal of the Mark will go off, Éomer's speed goes up, then Cleave will go off, and it will deal a little bit of extra damage because it does scale with speed. A somewhat more complicated example, if I can find where my Gimli is. Poor Gimli is still just level 5. Pay no attention to the actual skills that I have given him. This is just, I probably just clicked basically randomly since I'm not using him this season. But if we look at the skill All In, this has a cooldown of 3 rounds, and it's going to reduce the next damage that you deal after using it. And so what you want to do is you want to put a skill point into this, and then right after that, you want to put a skill point into Heavily Wounded, assuming you're only going to take Heavily Wounded to 1 of 7, which would be my suggestion on Gimli anyways. Because then what's going to happen is All In will go off, and then immediately after All In, Heavily Wounded, which at one point only does 70% damage anyway. So Heavily Wounded will deal the reduced amount of damage from the debuff that All In places on you. And since Heavily Wounded is dealing only 70% damage, you're losing a lot less damage than if it was an auto attack or some other skill. I don't think All In goes off on any rounds with any of his other skills anyway, but you can net yourself a little bit of extra auto attack damage if you have Heavily Wounded take the All In hit rather than your normal attack. And for the final use case here, I want to talk about my boy T2 Aragorn. I would recommend that you put 1 point into Precise Blow as your first damaging skill, because this carries the Pursuit effect, which means you get to ignore their evasion/avoidance status. This is going to go off on the same rounds as Cold a Week, and it will share at least one round with Raid. Even though this has a 2-round cooldown, there will be at least one round in which they both go off. The reason you want this one to go off first is because it has Pursuit, which means in the case of a single instance of avoidance being in play, so something like Shroud Armor, if that's still in play, Gil-galad evasion, elf unit evasion, those type of things, this could go off and go ahead and eat up that instance of evasion, and then your other skills will follow it up. Whereas if you had, let's say, Cold a Week going off first, this could just totally whiff, and then Precise Blow goes off and it's going to hit through the evasion. Whereas if you had Precise Blow go off first, it could eat that stack of evasion, the evasion would fall off, and then Cold a Week would hit. So hopefully this helps you guys build your commanders a little bit more efficiently. It's not exactly rocket science at the end of the day, but it isn't something that the game makes readily available for new players. And since we do have new people joining the game, I thought it would be worth making a video about. Catch you in the next one. Phoenix, over and out.